Hello, everyone. A quick note, we are live in 2 languages, in English on the Visual Voices Facebook page, and in Turkish on the Anadolu Kultur Facebook page.
Merhabalar, yayını Türkçe izlemek için Anadolu Kültür'ün Facebook sayfasını takip edebilirsiniz.
Okay, thank you, Aysu. On behalf of Visual Voices, I would like to welcome everyone joining us tonight. I'm so proud, so very pleased to be collaborating with Anadolu Kultur and really look forward to tonight's discussion. Before sharing more about the event and introducing our speakers, I wanted to give a few minutes for each of the partner organizations to share their work. I can go ahead and get started by introducing Visual Voices. Visual Voices is a nonprofit organization based in Nicosia, Cyprus, but working internationally. Our focus is on arts-based peace building, more specifically with visual arts, because we see enormous potential and long-lasting effects of such socially engaged expression. We aim to challenge conflict narratives through visual art by creating space to address key social challenges resulting from violent conflict. And in doing so, our aim is to promote greater community, political, and social dialogue around these challenges. I'll also be sharing a little bit more later. So for now, that's it. And I'll pass it over to Aysu to share more.
Thanks, Alden. Hello from Istanbul and welcome everyone to our second conversation. We are very pleased to be here with these distinguished speakers and heartfelt thanks to them for joining us. Also, special thanks to our partner, Visual Voices, for inviting us on board for Overlapping Circles events. We met with Visual Voices through our WAHA program, which is designed and run by Anadolu Kültür in partnership with MidOst from Berlin. And WAHA, meaning Oasis in Turkish, is a 2-year program bringing together the empowered voices of independent arts and culture spaces, advocating for public discussion and dialogue in cities across Turkey, Europe, and neighboring countries. There are currently 16 WAHA hubs in different cities, and Visual Voices is part of our Nicosia hub. And we are very happy to collaborate with you on another level through these events. To give an overview of what we do at Anadolu Kültür, since 2002, we have been implementing various projects through culture and arts to establish local, regional, and international collaborations to support the production and sharing of cultural and artistic works, to develop artistic tools which enable social involvement of disadvantaged groups, to emphasize cultural rights and cultural diversity, create awareness about cultural heritage, to incorporate suppressed histories into collective memory and open up channels for dialogue with Armenia. As Anadolu Kültür, we had already realized a few projects in Cyprus previously with some other partners. And our current collaboration with Visual Voices for these conversations is a meaningful step for us in bringing together 2 societies whose history is quite challenging and full of clashes. Thank you.
Thank you, Aysu. And also, just to add, it's been really a pleasure to collaborate with you and Anadolu Kultur, and the WAHA Hubs project has really been a positive experience for us. And everyone out there joining tonight, it's definitely worth checking out the website as well to see what the other hubs are doing. Going back to tonight's event, I wanted to share a little bit more an introduction of what we will be discussing. So this conversation will bring together 2 circles of civil society from Cyprus and Turkey to initiate more space where it is limited. As the 2 circles move towards each other, they begin to intersect and interact, and new shapes emerge. The overarching approach of this dialogue will focus on long-term initiatives that utilize the arts to bring people together from different, often opposing perspectives that have resulted from social conflict. This will include projects and organizations that seek to build new opportunities for dialogue, as well as a deeper understanding of how narratives can shape the way we interact with the world. These initiatives vary in structure and artistic focus, but all intend to promote positive social change. The questions guiding tonight's presentations are: how have these projects found success, and how do they approach the issue at hand? What has been their social impact? And what are the challenges that they have faced, and how much could they cope with the difficulties? I would also like to note that these conversations are part of the Anna Lindh Foundation's virtual marathon for dialogue in the Euromed and are made possible with the support of the Anna Lindh Foundation and the European Union. The Anna Lindh Foundation is an international organization which promotes intercultural exchanges and common projects among the civil societies of the Euro-Mediterranean region. Although this is the second and final conversation of the series, I would like you to note that the full recorded conversations will continue to be available on our Facebook pages and websites. Today, we are joined by 4 civil society practitioners who we will be hearing from shortly. And I will now give the floor back to Aysu to introduce our first speaker.
Thanks again, Alden. And our first speaker today is actually my colleague from Anadolu Kültür, Övgü Gökçeyaşa. We have a branch in Diyarbakır, founded simultaneously with Anadolu Kültür in 2002. Diyarbakır Art Center, which is shortly called as DSM, supports artistic production and dissemination of cultural work and develops collaborations. DSM has implemented various projects in Diyarbakır and in the region involving civil society organizations on cultural rights, as well as opening channels for artists from different backgrounds. For the last several years, DSM focused on programs around film, photography, and literature, with a focus on collective production and dissemination of knowledge for particularly younger generations. Diyarbakır Literature Days, in partnership with Liz Publishing, and BAK, Revealing the City Through Memory, are among 2 program lines DSM has been working in the last years. So Övgü is the program coordinator of DSM since 2011. She designs and implements interdisciplinary projects and training programs and works in close collaboration with culture and arts initiatives in the region. Now I would like to give the floor to Övgü to introduce us, especially BAK project, in more detail.
Thank you, Aysu, and thank you, Visual Voices. It's a pleasure to be a part of this event, and I'm very curious to hear all the speakers as well. So I think it's always good to introduce the context of our projects while we're starting, and then maybe build up onto all the challenges that you have been referring to. BAK Revealing the City Through Memory is a photography and video project. It's actually a cultural collaboration and artistic production project, which we launched at 2012. And I think it's also quite an exemplary project of Anadolu Kültür, because it emerged after a series of different workshops, trainings implemented in different cities of Turkey with particularly young people in different political contexts. So the idea of BAK somehow arose relying on the experience, in the previous experience of Anadolu Kültür, and it was underlining 2 main points about Turkey and about young people, young storytellers living in Turkey. On the one hand, the project wanted to support young people's production of stories about their cities, which we thought were in a way underlining identities and all the problems that the young people are facing in their daily lives, but also in a major scale, in a larger scale. So on the one hand, we wanted to open space for their ideas and and open grounds to have a look at how they see all these issues that intersect their lives in their cities. And on the second level, we wanted to also open a space to bring together people from different areas of Turkey, from different sections of the society, to be in a common and collective productive environment. So instead of directly speaking about the problems of political or societal issues, a collective artistic production could open up channels of dialogue, channels of discussion, and it did. So our experience also, in a way, justified that, as I will explain later on. And the project focused on conceptually city and memory. And there were a couple of reasons for that. On the one hand, documentary photography and documentary film in Turkey, in different cities of Turkey, was becoming more and more prominent in talking about problems of different communities by the end of 2010s and all. And on the other hand, memory has been an issue that's been discussed in, again, different sections of societies, particularly in the Kurdish community of Turkey, with more and more documentaries and short films emerging. So by 2012, it was a moment in Turkey's contemporary history that people had an open eye to look in the past in a productive way and to come up with maybe stories, or to start talking about stories. And we thought this project could contribute to that climate of dialogue and discussion, which was followed shortly by Turkey's official peace process period. So when we designed the project, we didn't know this was coming. We thought it was necessary to start certain talks and dialogues between young people, but this turned into an official climate suddenly while we were starting the project. And we could directly observe what kind of an impact this had on young people and their perception of each other, as well as of themselves and their cities and their collective memories. So the first edition of BAC, which took place between 2012 and 2014, the workshops, the production process, and the exhibitions took place in this political climate, where the government was trying to open channels for discussion concerning the peace process, and the communities on the western side of Turkey and southeastern side of Turkey were open to discuss, talk, listen to each other, to be together in common environments. And we believe that this also reflected in the production of the stories that the young people somehow worked on. So the structure of the project in the first 3 editions of BAC in 2014, 16 and 18 has been composed of a 1.5 year process in which the participants had workshops, production period, a post-production period, and then an exhibition and event program where they could actually present their works and share with again, different audiences in Turkey. And of course, as times changed, the political climate also changed. So in each edition of BAC, we could witness the differences and difficulties that the immediate political agenda had on people's lives. Slowly, the conflict increased. there was a stepping back from, young people to some of the activities, but we could easily see that there were always a bunch of dedicated people who really wanted to tell the stories, hear the stories, and to be together, to try being together in a productive environment. And I must say it's also been like a school for us, because we had the chance to meet a lot of young people during this time, and we could see how they attached to the existing political agenda or detached from it, but also how they could creatively transform their identities or issues around their identities to actually work of visual art. And on the one hand, we could, as the immediate outcomes of these projects or these periods, different editions of Bach, on the one hand, we could see the dramatic effect of this whole project on young people who joined, in terms of the way they speak to each other, the things they tell each other, the stories they produce. But on the other hand, we also saw the influence of these stories on people who actually get involved as audiences in the exhibitions we opened, in the events, thematic events we organized in collaboration of many different institutions, organizations, or festivals. So as the project evolved, we tried to incorporate new branches under the same program. On the one hand, the collective production workshops continued. On the other hand, we realized that a group of young people who are interested in visual arts in different cities needed training on these issues, not technical training, but a training in which they could actually problematize issues around documentary, film or photography, or visual arts, or storytelling in general, in relation with urban issues, in relation with social issues. So we prepared a complementary program, which is called Bach Trainings, that actually invited this time people not necessarily to produce films or photography projects, but to be together in a training program and to discuss about examples of visual arts that really touch these issues. So after all these different parts of the project, we started observing and discussing that both financially and also politically and geographically, it's been getting more and more difficult to bring people physically together, even before pandemic. And we had a long research period looking at different storytelling, digital storytelling platforms, where we could maybe enlarge the prospect of the project to other young people in different cities of Turkey, whereas originally Bach was focusing on two regions as the centers of Diyarbakır and Izmir. So we transformed the idea of Bach into a digital platform, and we launched a website, shehrebak.org, and started to make open calls, digital open calls, since 2018 to this date. Today, our new call has been just launched, so we're still continuing with that. And maybe just to give you some figures to imagine, the first 3 editions of Bach since 2012 operated in 12 cities in Turkey, as Diyarbakır and Izmir being the main axis. 60 young people produced short documentary, photography and video projects, which got critical acclaim and been shown in exhibitions and events in Turkey and abroad. And more than 200 young people attended BAC trainings, and thousands of people seen the works, exhibitions in different years. So I think when we look back in the past 8 years, it's almost 8 years or maybe 9 years since BAC launched. It's a long-term program. We feel that it has been reflecting all the challenges of being a Turkish citizen, living in contemporary Turkey, or trying to work in areas of documentary, filmmaking, or photography. So the challenges of the project, in a way, reflects the challenges of these areas, because in different parts of this whole process, in different periods of this whole process, we have been face to face with increasing censorship cases in Turkey toward documentary films particularly, or security issues concerning certain cities and spaces, which really put a lot of pressure on groups working or shooting in those cities. And lately, the pandemic itself, which is a totally new and global situation, that kind of also got included in the whole repertoire of BAC. I'd like to show you a small trailer with our latest production workshop, collective production workshop of BAC. It's a different, we tried a different method in this workshop. On the one hand, we had to try a different method because it had to be composed completely online. But on the other hand, instead of bringing different regions, for the first time, we organized this in the same region with 3 neighboring cities, open a call open to 3 neighboring cities in southeastern Turkey, Diyarbakır, Batman, and Mardin, and only 2 women. So let me show you the trailer first, and then I will tell you about the concept a little bit, and then wrap up, hopefully.
And just a quick reminder, you're approaching 15 minutes, just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
But we can go a little bit longer and then continue after.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just show this trailer, which is less than a minute, and then wrap up.
Denüsan mahallesinde evlerin damında kuşlarını besleyen 2 kuşbaz.
Bizimkisi gibi eskileri belki. Yenileri kaldıramazlar.
Hep beraber oynardık.
Çok fazla yolun çıkmış aslında. Yani 4 tane diyebilirim.
So the trailer you saw belongs to our latest BAC collective production workshop, Kulaktan Kulağa in Turkish, Voicing Voices in English, although it's not a direct translation. Kulaktan Kulağa in Turkish means there is a play, Chinese Whispers, I guess it's called in English. You tell something to the other's ear, and then she says something to the other's ear, etc. So we came up with this idea, opening this workshop to only women and only women from this side of Turkey, because we thought it was a good time that women could actually start deconstructing the existing histories, urban stories belonging to this climate. And we had 12 young filmmakers who came up with 12 distinguishing short films, shading light on different issues about the places they live. So I think with this last workshop project, which we had to launch on YouTube, back channel, instead of meeting physically with audiences, we also experienced the advantage of reaching a lot of people in only 3 or 4 days. And the films are still being invited to festivals for physical screenings, perhaps. But nevertheless, I think it was a very, very productive process for us during the depression of pandemic, to see that people could actually get involved, tell the stories they wanted to tell, challenge the existing narratives, and put their word out there, ready to put their word out there for further discussions. So I think BUCK as a project, but also as an idea, lives in a climate where we are very much in need of discovering, talking about, revealing issues around memory, not only for a well understood past, but also for a better future. Let me wrap up here, and then we can go on if you have more questions.
Well, thank you very much, Övgü, for your insights through this beautiful project. And now we will turn to our second guest from Turkey, Naz Vardar from Karakutu. We can call Karakutu a fellow organization, as they share the office with part of our team at DEPO, which is Anadolu Kültür Space for Arts, Culture and Critical Debate in the center of Istanbul. So Karakutu was also a participant of our Tandem Turkey program a few years ago, and we have several links with them, and we admire their work in the field. Apart from our admiration, the reason we invited Karakutu for this conversation is their work is also addressing the city and the collective memory in a different way, and they work with young generations as well. So we find it valuable to discuss in parallel to BUCK project what they do with young generations. So to give an overview, Karakutu also works to encourage critical thinking towards the injustices in the past and raise awareness about the human rights and democratic values by creating alternative historical narratives with the youth since 2014. One of the most important activities of Karakutu is the Memory Journey program, in which participants engage in historical research and write ID cards for memory sites in a given neighborhood. The outcome of the journey is a memory walk, where the historical narratives of the silenced are narrated by the young volunteers. So Nal's first encounter with Karakutu was in 2017 when she had participated in the fall school, which focused on the issues of collective memory and memory work in Turkey. Currently, she takes part as a narrator in memory walks and as a mentor in the Memory Journey program in Karakutu. She will tell us about her journey at Karakutu and how they work, so I kindly invite Naz to give us more details.
Thank you, Aysu, for the introduction. I first want to thank Anadolu Kültür and Visual Voices for inviting us here and enabling such a dialogue today. It's a very valuable dialogue, I guess. At the end, we will say it. And I want to thank Özge for introducing us back and showing this beautiful trailer. And I'm looking forward to Javi's talk. So today I will speak as a volunteer of Karakutu. So I will speak from within the experience of Karakutu and the Memory Journey program. Because my journey with Karakutu has started as part of this target group of Karakutu. I was one of the participants in the fall school when I just started my MA program in history, and I was dealing with memory studies in Turkey and how to engage more deeply with that. But in academia and in this compartmentalized world of academia, memory studies just stands at the intersection of like a couple of different disciplines, and it was hard to find a very like fruitful program that could introduce you into memory studies. So at this point, okay, if my voice is just bad, I will just.
Yes, please. For the interpretation, it will be better, I guess. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for warning me. If it's better right now, I can continue. Okay. So I encountered Karakutu's fall program because I felt that it could introduce me to the theories and practices of memory studies in Turkey better. So, and my journey started in 2017. And in this presentation, I will first briefly introduce you Karakutu, what we do there and how we were founded. And then in the second part of my talk, I will walk you through our memory journey program and what we do there. So I will just quickly share my screen. Oops, not this one. I will keep you waiting, sorry. Okay. Karakutu was founded in 2014 in Istanbul. So, I'm sorry. I will just, yeah. It was founded in 2014. So at the time, there were already a couple of organizations working with memory studies in Turkey. BAK was one of them, Anadolu Kültür was one of them. Hrant Dink Foundation, Hafıza Merkezi, and Beraberce were the other organizations. But Karakutu have been born out of the need to extend this effort in Turkey to the youth in Turkey. So the main purpose of Karakutu have been to put the issues around collective memory, practices of remembrance and forgetting in the agenda of the youth, raise awareness for discrimination, injustices, and violence of human rights, as well as encourage the youth to speak up, become main actors in bringing forth the narratives that were left out by the official histories in Turkey. So one of the main products out of this purpose was the Memory Journey program, which I will tell you more in detail in the second part of my talk. But apart from that, we have a couple of other activities which support the young people in Turkey. One of them is a research fund, which was founded in 2016 to support young researchers and artists in implementing their projects in the areas of collective memory, reconciliation, peace building, and conflict transformation. And so far, 16 young people projects have been supported by Karakutu, and they have successfully realize their projects, and they're still continuing. And the second main activity is the fall school, as I just mentioned. It's a 3-day program in which youth from around the Turkey come together. They engage in lectures around the theoretical framework of memory studies. They are introduced into the national and international practices of memorialization, and they are encouraged to become part of this civil society around collective remembrance and politics of memory. And as another activity we have is the seminar series we organize throughout the year. For these seminars, which are titled as In Search of Justice seminars, Adalet Arayışı seminerleri, we invite academics, researchers, and activists whose works are also going around the similar issues as Karakutu, and we just speak with them about their experiences, their researches and works in memory studies in Turkey. And apart from these activities that were born from within Karakutu, we also take part in international activities, and we also have international collaborations with other organizations, which allow us to engage more into an global and international and interregional dialogue with the youth of other countries and regions and from different ethnic and religious backgrounds. So as Övgü just said, we were also hit by this global pandemic. Since all of our activities were designed as offline and face-to-face activities, it came as a great shock to us at first. But later on, we found ways and methods to carry our activities online, and it was an ever-evolving process with the feedback of our participants that we managed to exist online too. I can tell you the details maybe later on. So this is it. This is briefly Karakutu. Now I will go back to the Memory Journey program. So Memory Journey program is probably a month-old program in which young participants get a training, then engage in a research process and a writing process, and then come up with a memory walk, memory tour, let's say, in Istanbul, in the given neighborhoods of Istanbul. So the end product is the memory walk, and for a couple of months we study to create a memory walk. So how we do that? We first have an open call, mostly online, and we gather applications. When deciding on the main group, we pay attention to have a diverse group of people, and we give priority to the members of groups that have been discriminated or that come from a disadvantaged groups, let's say. And then when the group of 15 or 20 people are gathered, this is mostly in Istanbul. This is one of the challenges we have, I guess, and maybe we can call it a shortcoming because we are based in Istanbul and our face-to-face meetings and trainings have to take in Istanbul. So most of the young people are university students who are either from Istanbul or who came to Istanbul to study. So we have, after the initial call and the selection process, we have 2 days of initial training in which participants are introduced to the main concepts and frameworks of memory walk. They are trained on research methods. This kind of has a semi-academic structure, let's say. We learn about how to conduct oral history interviews. We learn about how to make a literature review about the certain periods and places of history in Turkey. And then we learn about how to access certain archives of newspapers, official documents, or data regarding the population consents, etc. Then at the end of these initial trainings, the main aim is to decide on a place to study. So a specific place, a specific memory site, let's say. And how do we decide on these neighborhoods and places? So the priority is given to the places which embody the story of marginalized groups, silenced histories, or struggle against discrimination or violence, especially during the Ottoman Empire and modern Turkish history. So I would prefer to give you a more detailed example of the tours, or show you our routes and specific places and tell their histories, but let's say so we prefer not to do it, because not to spoil this main surprise and discoveries that waits in the memory walk. So I invite, if possible, to all of you to one of our memory walks to get a better sense of it, but I will just give you a brief overview here. One of the couple of routes we have is Şişli, Beyoğlu, Kadıköy, Cağaloğlu, and Yeldeğirmeni in Istanbul. These have a very diverse and multicultural social and cultural histories, and they have a very diverse ethno-religious background. For example, we have a gender tour in Sultanahmet, or a history of Turkish press tour in Cağaloğlu. When you participate in a memory journey program, you either pick one of the places in these neighborhoods, or we can give you a new tour route, let's say, a new neighborhood. So the places should be real physical places. They should have a history of certain individuals, institutions, or historical events. So after the places are determined, we go on to the research process, in which the participants are assisted by the mentors from Karakutu, who are probably more experienced members of volunteers of Karakutu, let's say. So the participants first review the literature regarding the period and the place that they're studying. Then they go on to a more detailed research, surveying through periodicals, archives, and other sorts of documents that can give you the primary information about those events, people, or institutions. And we prefer to have interviews with experts, researchers, and scholars, and also oral history interviews with the witnesses of these events, if possible, or the resident neighborhood. Then after the research process, in the research process, we pay attention to be a very, let's say, systematic process by taking note of the sources, by applying the citation methods that are academically accepted. Then when we go to the writing process, there's a form that every participant has to fill out regarding their places. So this is a place ID card, we call it, mekan kimlik kartı. In that card, the participant puts every information they gathered regarding the place by giving references, and they organize the knowledge that they gathered. So this forms kind of a collective archive of Karakutu, which is ever evolving, with every participant contributing to the cards, to the development of this research. And these cards form the basis of memory walks. So the idea is, whoever comes into Karakutu, they take these ID cards and they can form their own narrative out of this already gathered information on these ID cards. So after we form our narrative, we start organizing the walks. So these narratives kind of make up 20 or 25 minutes. They are supported by visual materials to be shown at the exact place that the tour is taking place. And the most fun part is we organize this tour as a treasure hunt. So we create passwords to distribute to the participants. We ask them to decipher this password and just guess which place it's actually addressing to. And then once they solve this password, we ask them to walk there and find the narrator to tell them the alternative narrative behind that physical place. So this is basically the walk we have. So after a group of people finds the narrator, they hear the story of that place, and then the narrator gives them the second password, and then they go to the next place, and like that they visit 4 to 5 places in one day. And at the end of the walk, we have the closing session, in which everything is wrapped up and everything is like discussed together. It's an interactive session in which people just share their experiences, share what they learned, how their perception about the history of the neighborhood has changed or shifted or not shifted, what they felt through the walk, and how they started to see the sea with a different eye. So as narrators, we have to pay attention to certain points. So the rule is, and this is the one of the most like strict rules of Karakutu when we create these narratives, to use a neutral language and not to reproduce this injustices, prejudices that are already existing in the society. So our aim is to create a narrative that has been often neglected by official history, but that doesn't produce the common knowledge, the common sense in the society regarding those places, and also reveal what's actually behind the everyday streets that we walk in, but what actually happened there, what people have actually experienced there, and to give voice to the different sides of the story and to the diverse experiences that have been there. So So this is basically the memory walk we have. This takes like a couple of months to compose. So for young volunteers like me, this means this is a completely new experience, because I'm a student of history for many years. So I have been studying this history in academia, for example, but this has been only I have been hearing this history only in classrooms and in reading them on paper. But with Karakutu, the history of this country goes to the streets, and it becomes actually something that you can actually experience, you can feel, and you can walk through. I think the main difference and the most significant part of Karakutu is that experience, because it becomes something that young people, together with the one who narrates and the one who listens to it, can experience it together, talk through it, and walk through it actually in the physical space of this history. So, and for those people who participate in Karakutu and who volunteer in Karakutu, this becomes something that feeds into their academic development through these like research methodologies and writing practices, and also the academia feeds into Karakutu too. I think this is how I see Karakutu, because they go hand in hand with academia, the civil society, and the university, and it actually becomes something that young people engage in history and engage in making heard these alternative voices in Turkey's history. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Naz, for sharing your experiences with us. I will definitely invite everyone to one of these memory walks to personally experience. It's really great. Now, Alden, I guess the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aysu, and thank you both for your presentations. There's some really exciting stuff going on, and I also really want to come to a memory walk, so hopefully sometime soon. Now for our next speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Hayriye Ruzgar, who joined the Home for Cooperation team in August 2016 as the communications officer. She's responsible for developing and implementing the communication strategy of the Home for Cooperation and ensuring that all programs are communicated in the most effective way to the communities of Cyprus. Hayriye manages the online and media presence of the Home for Cooperation and its connected programs, acts as the press contact, and presents the Home in local and international meetings and events. A little bit more about the Home for Cooperation. The Home for Cooperation is a unique community center located in the heart of Nicosia. It is the embodiment of intercommunal cooperation, contributing to the collective efforts of civil society in their engagement with peace building and intercultural dialogue. Using its sources, it encourages people to cooperate with each other beyond constraints and dividing lines. Today, the Home has become a landmark building within the Lidra Palace Crossing UN buffer zone. It hosts an extensive variety of cultural, artistic, and educational programs with the aim of fostering creativity and intercultural trust in Cyprus and internationally. I think Hayriye will also be sharing about two other really exciting initiatives that I can speak to from experience that are really, really incredible. The Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival and United by Sound. But I'll leave it here and pass it along to Hayriye to share more.
Thank you very much, Alden. I hope everyone can hear me clearly as well. Just do a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us as well to be part of this conversation. I'm very happy that I get to know you, Aysu, and Naz, and also the amazing work that you guys are doing. And happy to be able to talk about the Home as well. And as the name suggests, I can see that there are a lot of overlapping ideas or methods that are being used in different settings by all of us, which is good to see. And I'm very happy, and I'm expecting a lot of ideas to come out of this discussion as well. So let me just start by sharing my screen. I think it will be easier to provide like the background. Just a second. Yeah, everyone can see clearly. Great. And also check with the sound. Yes. So, as Alden also gave a bit of a background, Home for Cooperation is an intercommunal community center located in the buffer zone of Nicosia in the middle of dividing lines in Cyprus. It was founded in 2011 by our parent organization, Association for Historical Dialogue and Research, in short AHDR. But it was founded as an educational and research center. And today, marking the 10 years of its existence, the home has turned into a community center thanks to the contribution of civil society actors, peace builders, and activists across the divide. I actually find it easiest to talk about the home by saying that it has two kinds of presence in the Cypriot society, which one of them is the physical presence and the other one is the active presence in peace building. It's a renovated building from the early 1950s, belonging to an Armenian Cypriot family, actually. And you can see how it was looking back in the day before the renovations took place. And until 2009, when the renovation started by HDR, this was what you could see crossing from the Ledra Palace crossing point, which opened only in 2003. So the last photo that is on the bottom right is Home for Cooperation today and how it was before 2009. Yeah, so today, its location in the buffer zone, which was the reason that it was left to decay in the first place, makes it accessible for everyone living on the island. And this includes people who cannot cross from the crossing points from one side to the other as well. So it provides a meeting space and one of the only locations in Cyprus that people who wouldn't be able to meet each other otherwise can do so at the Home for Cooperation. And this allows us to act as a hub as well, attracting several intercommunal organizations who have their office spaces in our building. And we are hosting currently 7 intercommunal organizations, all working on their own paths to peace building, ranging from sports-based approaches to religious facilitation and so on. And the location of the building also allows us to offer meeting spaces to organizations and individuals who would like to implement their own innovative ideas or organize their events, have their meetings, and who want to attract communities from across the divide and not focus only on one community. And the last thing I want to say about the physical presence is the home cafe that is located in our ground floor. It's also managed by the Home for Cooperation team, which is just a neutral place that people can come together over a cup of coffee in their daily life. So I'm moving on to the second presence of the Home for Cooperation, which is its active presence in the peace building field. And our peace building approach is based on creating opportunities for people from various communities of Cyprus to come together via their common interests. And the tools we use towards this end are coming from arts and culture. And I believe we all agree on this, that arts have the power and sometimes the responsibility, I would say, to open discussions that we usually choose to stay away from and to provoke new questions, thoughts, or emotions. Therefore, in a frozen conflict like Cyprus, arts present unique tools to overcome various barriers, including language, ideology, religion, and also I think it makes it easier to communicate the feelings and to share experiences, which can facilitate the creation of new memories. It offers the chance to see the human in the traumatic experiences that the communities of Cyprus carry still to this day. And benefiting from the power of arts, we have developed 2 core programs that are continuing and expanding every year, which Alden also just mentioned. The first one is the United by Sound. It's a local program that uses music for peace building and social change, and to build connections, foster empathy, and create an impact in relations between the communities. It can influence, music is a tool that can influence behavior and strengthen social bonds. So we are benefiting from the power of music to address the needs of the societies as well, who are divided and affected by the conflict. And one integral component of the United by Sound is the live concerts that take place across at the Home for Cooperation with musicians from across the divide, presenting their work to a multi-communal audience as well, and facilitating connections between the musicians for future collaborations. And in 2020, with the COVID, we also experienced a lot of challenges implementing this program, as we couldn't physically bring people together. And thinking of what we can do, we managed to bring together for the musicians under the collective island seeds. And in the lockdown conditions, they managed to create a new song called The Time is Ripe, carrying the message of peace in Cyprus, and with melodies emphasizing the cultural diversity of our island. And the song, in this sense, was produced in Cypriot Greek, Cypriot Turkish, and English. And I want to show you the video clip as well, which was recorded by the musicians themselves during the lockdown. If there are any issues, let me know, please.
Ας μάθουμε που τα δεντρά, οι κλόνοι μας να πλώσουν και μέσα στις αγκάλες μας πλάσματα να μερώσουν.
Let's bring our voices together. Let's break on through to the other side. Oh, we are building a friendship. Guided by hope and fed from love.
Müzikle atar bir kulya, temas etmez sana olmaz. Kollarını açman lazım barışana. Hem sinyal tüter hem laf sana. Sevgiden üstün değildir tarih. Daha fazlasını yapman lazım birleşmek adına.
The future is brighter, we're dreaming, hoping, seeing, together we're working out. It's time for loving our neighbor. Time is right, time is right. Now is the time to live in peace. Time is right, the time is right. Within our hearts lies the solution. It's time to heal. It's time to heal. It's time to honor this troubled
Τον ουρανό βολευτέρκα σου πέτασε λήφκι. Μόνο να μην το μοιράζεσαι, τίποτε σε λήφκι. Δέκα που σερούνται, όπως κάνει βλάστωση. Και κάνουν όριμους καρπούς τους άλλους για να θλιώσει.
It's time for loving our neighbor. Time is right, time
Yes. Now I will move on to another program that I want to tell you about. Is our biggest program, the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival. It's an international performing arts festival hosting performances outside of mainstream art practices, which mainly deal with controversial or difficult topics. It started as a local theater festival in 2014 in the buffer zone, but through the years it became an internationally recognized festival that also holds the remarkable festival label from European Festivals Association since 2017. And it's one of our programs that take place not only in the buffer zone, but across Nicosia in venues that have cultural or social significance for the communities, like old churches, marketplaces, or old bazaars. And the Performing Arts Festival has proven to be one of the best tools to trigger discussions about the personal or collectivistic traumas that the people of Cyprus have experienced in the past and continue to experience still to this day, and to promote understanding, respect, and trust in one another. In 2020, again, we had to adapt the new conditions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, including the sudden and long closure of the crossing points in Cyprus, which actually recently opened with some limited movement, let's say, in certain conditions. And the result was a hybrid festival with the introduction of an online blog, Buffer Fringe blog, where artists could share their creative processes and the development of their work with the audience online. And combined with the live streaming of the live performances, which we managed to organize in December, with, of course, limited number of audiences. And the theme of 2020 festival was chosen as displacement. It was chosen before the pandemic, but in the end, it became like, it couldn't have been more fitting. We had to think about displacement at a time that we literally could not be displaced due to COVID. So it was very interesting for us. And in 2021, this year, we thought of keeping the theme, displacement, as it's still a continuing process, and the blog is also is alive, let's say, still this year. And we are presenting performances which had to be postponed from last year. And with introduction of new performances and new collaborations between local artists and international organizations. And I think the most important contribution of Buffer Fringe into the Cypriot art scene is the support it offers to the artists, and especially to the works in progress. And also through educational opportunities that it offers through Thinking Partners program, which matches the artist with a partner that can help them develop their performance in a better way. And now I want to show you another video, which is our highlights video from 2019 festival, which we were still able to bring at least hundreds of people together physically. It was organized in the buffer zone. This the video that I'm going to show you is from the interactive zone, which was next to the Home for Cooperation, apart from two main stages across the divide. So this was more like an open day that people were invited to visit various installations and performances in the area of the buffer zone.
Hadia, just a quick reminder, you're around 15 minutes now, so maybe after the video we'll transition.
Yeah. I have like 2 minutes. Thank you. Yes. And the last thing I want to say is that apart from these arts-based core programs, let's say, that we are organizing, we are also organizing language classes in Greek and Turkish, walking and cycling tours in Nicosia based on different thematics ranging from gender to food, from history, to architecture, to arts. And in general, we are trying to find different ways to bring different age groups together based on their common interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadia. Thank you for sharing the home's work. I can say I have so much respect for what you do and what the home is doing. And even though I've been to a lot of those events in person, it's still nice to see it. Every time during your presentation, I was impressed once again. So thank you so much for the presentation. And I guess, well, we're transitioning into the next speaker, which also happens to be me. Tonight I have the double role of the moderator and civil society representative. So a few words about myself and Visual Voices. I'm the co-founder of Visual Voices, where I now serve as the director of program development. As we are a small organization, I do a little bit of everything. But I have been focusing on developing our methodology, and in particular, linking peace education into our programs. As I mentioned before, Visual Voices is a nonprofit organization dedicated to working with young visual artists from communities affected by violent conflict to pursue socially engaged artistic practice related to peace advocacy. Our core methodology focuses around artists in residence program for socially engaged artistic practice and non-commercial platforms of expression. We see our work as a means of challenging conflict narratives and creating peace supporting narratives that engage communities for positive social change. So from here, I want to, I'm gonna start my timer as well so I don't go over. So from here, I'll expand a little bit more on our work and how it relates to the theme of tonight's discussion. So the first element of our work is the Artists in Residence programs, and I'm gonna share my screen to show a little bit of what we're focused on. So we have thematic Artists in Residence programs, both here in focused in Cyprus, in Nicosia, and other cities as well, artists coming from other cities, but also internationally. So aiming to connect young visual artists from communities that have been affected by violent conflict from all around the world, seeking to address common core challenges that have resulted from conflict, and finding ways through their artistic practice to build dialogue around these issues, and also, kind of internal dialogue, reflective processes where they explore these themes themselves, but then also the creation of resources, basically artworks that, that through the themes they explore have a way of initiating dialogue on a much larger scale, we think both locally and internationally. So within our core programming, we focus on kind of like three elements: peace education, so bringing together workshops and discussions for the artists to explore some themes from the kind of peace building practice as a way of maybe as a way of initiating their artistic process or conceptualizing something in a different way. Also bringing in professional mentoring. So whether that's related to an artistic practice or maybe a related profession. So journalism, for example, bringing in journalists or other professions that would be relevant in supporting the artistic development. And then applied cultural management. So giving young artists the opportunity to use their skills and build skills where maybe they might want more experience. For example, networking, reaching out to media, sharing their artworks, their initiatives, and then also curation, basically anything that they want to be have opportunities to develop so that they can continue beyond this work with Visual Voices as an organization and continue in their own practice, initiating their own collaborations, their own projects, etc. So all of this is aimed at supporting continued peace advocacy in communities affected by violent conflict. I'll go ahead and share another so kind of the larger picture of our work and how we link this together, which I'll be sharing a little bit more on. So our core programming kind of starts at these thematic artist in residence programs. So we see this as supporting community leaders. We see young visual artists as having the skills, existing skills that allow them to engage with the community on well, very effectively and on a much larger scale. And also building non-commercial platforms of expression. So this focuses on disseminating the artworks that seek to promote peace, but also to disseminate or to promote the artists themselves and the important work that they're doing within their communities. And then finally, arts-based community peace-building projects, so connecting artists with community programs. And I'm going to stop sharing for now, if I can. There we go. Sorry, one sec. We've got a lot of... and so that kind of leads into the second initiative, Visual Voices initiative, that I wanted to share tonight. So the second is our augmented reality storytelling application that we have been developing with Science, Ithika MRG, and Dr. Marina Hasapopoulou from NYU Tisch School of the Arts. And this fits more in with our non-commercial platforms of expression. And to get started, to give a better understanding of what I'm talking about, I wanted to share a quick video that I think will be more clear. And then I'll expand from there. Can you hear, actually?
My sculptures on rooftops, in squares, in private houses, across borders. Across borders. What an amazing possibility. To activate my sculpture in spaces where they can start talking about conflict and drama in a way that expands the meaning of my work into a state of tangible interpretation from people all over the world.
The Visual Voices AR app is all about combining socially engaged art, technology, and storytelling to promote greater social awareness and more informed global perspectives. The app has two principal functions: to archive socially engaged artworks for easier access to users around the world, and to create new stories through user-generated digital graffiti highlighting the included artworks. These new stories connect the global socio-political situation to the individual experience, creating an opportunity for people to learn and share with the power of storytelling, a means of understanding the distanced challenges felt by communities experiencing violent conflict, which must be understood, especially in Europe, which is connected to these challenges by land, sea, and policy. As an archive, the app shares the original artworks alongside information about the artists and specific conflict contexts from where it was created. For artists, this means greater awareness around the challenges they seek to address. Users simply scroll through the archive to view all the artworks, then click for more information. This archive is enhanced by transforming Cyprus. It continues by connecting the world of the artworks with the world of the users. Drag and drop any of these artworks into your own surroundings. Simply choose a meaningful space, adjust the image to fit just right, tell your story, and share.
So I hope that wasn't, I hope it was clear and didn't, we had a small internet problem there. But I was also going to explain it a little bit more. So the idea behind this actually relates directly to intercultural dialogue. It's about bringing together and archiving socially engaged artworks from all over the world. And through this artwork, creating a learning opportunity for any user that decides to engage. So as it said in the video, along with the original artwork, you can learn about the local context, you can learn about the artist, and you can learn about their inspiration, why they wanted to share this particular message. Then taking that a step further, we go directly to the user. And there, we see this as like a means of internal dialogue, but also with their community and with other communities around the world. So hopefully through the process, this is also a reflection for people. What do these artworks, as they're scrolling through the archive, what do they mean to them? How does that help them understand new perspectives? And how does that maybe for them relate directly to where they live or what they're experiencing? So through this process of bringing an artwork into our own community, whether it's down the street or somewhere else around town, it's about creating a story through the artwork, and then also sharing that story, a brief written story of why this space, what it means to them, and then sharing that also with the larger community. So it can reach anyone, anywhere in the world. And it's a way of initiating this dialogue, hopefully sharing messages, responding to messages, etc. So, this is something that's being developed and we hopefully come out soon. But we're really excited to get artworks from all over the world and to bring them directly to your mobile device. So that's we have other non-commercial platforms of expression. Of course, we are working with traditional exhibitions, digital exhibitions, campaigns, which also relates back to the augmented reality storytelling app. And yeah, I think again, it's about creating space for ideas to be shared, creating space for people to come together and build off of those ideas being shared to create new conversations elsewhere. And then our third element is the third element of our work that I wanted to highlight is our community projects. So the idea of this being that it is a way to continue creating opportunities for the artists within our network, because we really believe that their contribution can make a big impact. And one example is a conversation series that just took place within the Vaha Hub program, which is an initiative of Anadolu Kultur and Mitos, as Aysu explained previously. But it's been a really exciting opportunity for us and also to involve artists within our network. So complementing each of the conversations addressing key social challenges was the production of an artwork based on the discussion by Zoe Policarpo. And she created one lamp per conversation, per theme, that really, when you start to look into it, had a much deeper and more powerful meaning built within the lamp, which was really exciting for the audience to explore and hear about. Yeah, we already seen that this addition to the program has also brought in new audiences. So a different audience to that we had attending the actual conversations, which has been very powerful and good for us to recognize that, you know, through these kind of initiatives, joint initiatives, bringing in the arts as well, you can also reach much more people that you may not have previously. And it's exciting for us to see that this will actually, through the artistic outputs, the project will actually live on through more and more exhibitions that are hopefully coming very soon. Yeah, let me just, yeah, okay. Before moving on to answering some of the questions we are discussing tonight, I also wanted to mention that the artist whose installation work, sculpture, was in the video was Christina Christofi, The Silent Dream, which was also part of our residency program. So again, bringing in the artworks, finding new ways to share them and share their meanings. So looking to social impact, I mean, for us, the social impact for all of these has really been positive and motivating for our team. We've seen this on multiple levels, including with the audience, or the artists, the audience, and communities in general. For example, speaking to the audiences, the residencies have had a big impact because they, of course, include an exhibition of the works produced both traditional and digital. There has been a lot of engagement, but even more importantly, we've heard very positive feedback from audiences. And this also includes anonymous survey data from research projects that show a very high percentage of people expressing their willingness to continue trying to understand other perspectives as a result of attending these exhibitions, and also to seek more opportunities for dialogue. And I think, again, when thinking of kind of what audience we're reaching, I think this is also, we see, at least through the arts, that we can, these kind of projects reach new audiences. They draw people in through common existing interests, which in this case is the arts. And then there's, you know, this additional element of peace advocacy, where they can start to take away from that as well. Just checking the time. So for the artists, it has also been a really positive experience because it's provided space to come together physically, although sometimes online as well, but also space for their work to be shared. In many cases, this is both within exhibitions, but also public spaces, mural work, etc. And yeah, just a space for them to share their voices, which is so critical in peace advocacy work. So we're really excited about that. And then with the AR app, for example, we also see great potential for communities to come together and build greater global awareness through upcoming projects like the AR app, which combines learning opportunities with personal expression. And then to address the kind of final question, the challenges and difficulties, there have been, of course, been challenges as well. But I think they also highlight the continued importance of civil society. I think COVID made things more difficult for all of us. But even through this, we had to, you know, even though we had to adopt, we found that our programs were still appreciated and helped keep momentum in difficult times, which has been, I don't know, I mean, I think, you know, you have to keep this momentum going. So I think, well, all of us here tonight have, through the conversation, I've seen that everyone is doing that and contributing to that. So I think that's very exciting. And then also a general challenge, which is the misunderstanding of what civil society is. And with that, a seemingly negative connotation from a lot of people sometimes. And that makes the work harder, but it's also something that we seek to address by making positive actions, like everyone has shared tonight, and supporting our community while doing it. So with that, I'm definitely out of time, and I'm going to open it up to kind of larger conversation, and also remind anyone out there joining on Facebook Live that if you have any questions, please do share in the chat, and I'll be sure to make sure that we have an opportunity to share. So I don't know if anyone wants to follow up on any other presentation or has any questions. I'll pause shortly to see if anyone wants to kick off the conversation. Oop, I may have a visitor. Sorry about that. Okay, then I have one question, and then hopefully we can add more from there. So I think, and well, I think arts-based programming, I think it has an inherent benefit of being more welcomed. I think it's like what I was saying previously about this common interest where it can draw people in through only one element of what it's aiming to do. But I guess, how do you think your activities are received by people with different perspectives? I guess politically, especially. I think, yeah, this is just, I can expand on the question, of course, but maybe some initial responses. And if the arts help with this or hinder or are neutral.
Maybe I can.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Turkey. Sorry.
Well, I was actually thinking about similar questions when I was listening to Hayriye and you. Although the experience is different in terms of the social atmosphere, particularly with the activities in the buffer zone. I was having a similar question, so it's like answering the question with a question, basically. But in our case, maybe just giving an example in our case, we always have the feeling that most of the audiences of the work being produced is already the people who are open to this, you know what I mean? So maybe, I mean, for Visual Voices and for your work, H4C, I was curious if you feel the same thing too. I mean, we feel very lucky if we can get some of the people exposed to, you know, these stories while they were not really, you know, thinking that way. And even more lucky to have certain participants in the projects who are like the first round benefactors in a way as well. But I think because the societies politically have been so much segregated in the entire world, there is still that sort of a camp situation. You have the progressive, the oppositional, people who believe in arts, or the people who believe arts can make a change, and then on the other hand, if someone is not open at all to this sort of work, it's really hard to meet them unless you carry on your work in mainstream media, which, you know, would take you or not, you know. So do you feel similarly? I mean, that's how I feel. So I'm answering, but also I'm posing the same question to you too.
Should we Hayriye, maybe you.
Yeah, we of course, I understand you really, really well, because we of course have the similar challenges, let's say, in Cyprus. And starting with the buffer zone, it's both complicated and not at the same time. I think after all these years, it became actually I would say, even a comfortable area in a way to organize such events that brings together mainly the two communities. And I mean, usually that's how it goes, the bicommunal circle, let's say, and also open to other communities. But the challenge is for us is mainly to go outside of the buffer zone and outside of Nicosia. I mean, of course, there are different difficulties. For example, in the buffer zone, you kind of have to deal with 3 authorities at the same time, which may have different concerns or different sensitivities. You have the Greek Cypriot Authority, you have the Turkish Cypriot Authority, and then because of the UN buffer zone, because we are located in the UN buffer zone, there are some limitations of the events that can be organized or certain rules that needs to be followed. And I also agree on the difficulty of reaching out to what we usually call the non-converted in Cyprus. So usually the people who come here have already taken the first step of crossing to the buffer zone. So they are already in the middle ground. And it's very, very difficult to reach beyond that circle. But I have seen also that, and which comes to Alden's question, I think, that arts actually have the potential to reach out to diverse groups of people. And through my time at the Home for Cooperation, I have seen this from firsthand as well. People who were not in contact with someone, like anyone from the other community, got to meet many people through the programs like the Buffer Fringe, started collaborations, and now organizing their own events, or they have built their own projects, they started their own organizations, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
For Karakutu, as I mentioned in my talk, we have a similar concern. I mean, our aim is to attract as diverse group of people as possible. But since we are located in Istanbul, and since our activities are on, I mean, in our activities we can only accept limited number of people. So we have a very small audience compared to the population of youth in Turkey in general. So, I mean, our volunteers or potential volunteers or participants in memory walks, they already have some certain awareness about the memory studies in Turkey, the collective memory and politics of memory in Turkey. So and also our volunteers come from certain academic backgrounds, like from sociology, from history, or law schools. So I mean, they're more engaged in social sciences and research and writing. So this kinds of limits our audience, but through our memory walks we have more advantage to reach out to a larger audience, let's say, and this is why in our memory walks we kind of pay attention to using a neutral language, not to like offend anyone, not to leave other narratives and views outside our methodology and framework. So this is one of our efforts that we put to avoid that kind of limitation in our audience. But yes, we face a lot of challenges due to our like location base and the sort of activity that we offer to people.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, it's very much a challenge to engage people who aren't already of maybe like this mindset already. But I think that I also at the same time am a firm believer, a big believer that the arts actually do have an impact. And I know people who have come to the Home for Cooperation with very different ideas than they left with maybe not that one time, maybe it's not come and go, but a few times coming and engaging through the arts and meeting new people, where there's definitely been a shift in how they see the conflict and how they then decide to engage further. And I think also, well, I guess I wrote down 2 points, but I guess they're kind of the same thing. But one of them is I also see sometimes, well, depending on within the spectrum of how neutral or how provocative the artwork itself is, that there can be less resistance to artistic expression than to other forms of expression, and especially based on I don't know, I think who it's coming from, where it's coming from, and also how it's presented, which I think can be a positive and a negative. I think it's very positive in the sense that, sometimes you can kind of mix in some new ideas without making a big issue around it. But at the same time, maybe on some people those ideas are lost. But I've also been in our work as well in a situation where, people that I very quickly recognize have much different political ideas to kind of what the artworks themselves are expressing, somehow find a way to find the beauty and somehow in the like very general terms accept what that artwork, the message that is trying to be shared. And kind of this like, oh yeah, that's nice, that's a good idea, that's an interesting idea. Well, if you put it this way, yeah, of course, that's very nice, and that's how it should be. But then maybe you get into in a different setting and they have much different ideas. But I still think that this mental process, this reflection in that moment is very valuable for kind of continued reflection. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if anyone wants to continue or that, or Naz, if you had another question from the beginning, or if it was.
I want to have a comment and a related question maybe, because what caught my attention listening to all these works is they are somehow related to the public space. And I think part of their impact can also be thought of this way. Like when you use public space, you also reach people that you didn't target sometimes. And whether it be the production process of these artistic works in public space or the circulation of them in the public space, such as having a festival in the buffer zone or having the memory walk at the heart of Istanbul, other people in the area, I mean, even if they are not a participant, will be observers witnessing that. And they are mostly probably curious what's going on, and they're asking what's happening there to others. And I think this tackling this curiosity is even something. I mean, it is kind of, I see it as kind of a multiplier effect of these projects. I mean, besides its participants or direct audience, you have this effect even to the witnesses sometimes. But of course, using public space is not always easy. I mean, we know it's not in Turkey, and that's kind of my related question. I mean, you mentioned briefly how the changing political context affected the project and its evolution. But how the daily politics affect your works, and how do you cope with that? Because sometimes it's encouraging, but maybe in a few weeks it may change, the discourses may change, and then it becomes discouraging all of a sudden for what you do. And how do you position yourselves in this kind of changing political climate, especially when it's changing so rapidly? because that's what I also observe when I compare our works to, I mean, maybe other programs or projects in Europe in more stable countries. It might be, you know, more challenging. So I was wondering how you cope with this situation in your daily works while doing all these great works that are going on several years. So that's my question.
I can begin if everyone's okay. So our memory walk is very into this like issues, because I mean we get to tell the stories of these physical places in the places in which it has transformed. I mean it's very related with how it transformed. I mean the way we tell stories and the way we feel while narrating those stories to our participants, it depends on the way that space has transformed. For example, I in our Beyoğlu route, I used to tell the stories of two different places. So it has been, I mean, those places have been used for many years. The narrators change. But in one of the places, for example, I sit on that small tea place and wait for the participants to arrive. And then when they arrive, we spend like 20 or 25 minutes, and I do it like every hour. So and the owner of the tea place and the other guests there just stare at me and ask me what I do there, what I tell them, because I mean the content of my narrative is kind of controversial to the official history that everyone is accustomed to. So that kind of creates a tension between us, but they become curious. When the participants go away, they come to me and they ask questions. We sit on the table and I tell them the story again and again. And in another place, for example, the building has transformed, but inside there is I won't give the names not to spoil the walk, but inside the building there's a specific publishing house in which we always like collaborate together, and we ask them to go inside the publishing house to tell the story, and they just allow us, and there we feel more secure and more like familiar with the atmosphere. So in our case, it depends on how the neighborhood has transformed and what kind of like what people around that specific place is like, what their ethnocultural background, what their political background is. Yeah, and it's definitely one of the main concerns of our walks. Yes.
So if I can make a contribution as well on this question, I don't know if you can hear music coming at the moment. Sorry about that. It's the sound check of the live concert we have to do. So what I wanted to say is that the political developments, how things are going at the political level, affects our work as well directly, because we see the tendency of people trying to come together or to find different ways of collaborating increases when there is a positive atmosphere going on between the leaders of the two communities and the official negotiations. And when it's the opposite, you can see the reluctance or the less interest, let's say, towards these kind of activities. But I also need to make like a distinction with the pandemic and 2020 and the closure of crossing points, and because we all felt, I'm talking about the peace builders or people who are, let's say, more open, we all felt like the decisions to close the crossing points or the measures taken on this topic was kind of influenced by the policies of the two sides. But we also saw a reaction from the people, from both sides of the divide. And I think it was the first time that there was a simultaneous demonstration that took place for peace and the opening of the closure, the crossing points. And this was something that gave us hope as well, that made us realize that there are a lot of links established between the people all these years that they cannot be broken overnight. And I think it was a strong message both for us and for the politicians to realize that people are still there and we can still continue to work directly with the people, starting from the individual level, from a bottom-up approach, let's say. And the use of public spaces, as Aysu said, I think it's very, very important. And I have a story to share on this from the Buffer Fringe Festival, that we had a performance at a square. It was performed on both sides of the divide in at different times. And I was in the southern part of Nicosia in Panorameni Square, and it was a performance that two artists, they were building their own frontiers, let's say, protecting their personal space with bricks. And then each one of them was trying to change that space of the other. And they were at the end breaking the bricks, and everywhere was like shattered bricks. It was a very interesting performance on isolation and private space and human interaction. And as we were filming it, I was sitting behind the camera. And there was this young guy that came to me and asked, "Can I ask, what is this? What are you filming?" And I was like, "It's a performing arts festival. It's one of the performances." And I explained to him what it was about. He left, and 10 minutes later, another guy came. And he was like, "My friend told me that you are from this organization called Home for Cooperation, and you are trying to show that this is one of the artists are Greek Cypriot and the other one is a Turkish Cypriot, and you are trying to unite the island. Is this what it's about?" And I was like, "No, not really." But it was like only once I said that the festival was organized by the Home for Cooperation, and immediately it created this perception that it was about unification of the island. And then he transferred it in this way to his friend, which was not even related to the performance, but still it got them curious to stay and watch it until the end. So for me, it was like one of the best examples how you can actually reach people who have a certain perception in their mind about you and your work.
Maybe I could add something about the overall impact discussion, which really has a lot to do with it. I think in one way or another, the civil society and cultural organizations always feel this pressure of creating impact, although it is not something that you can really measure, although in many projects you are asked to measure it one way or another. But of course, there are measurable aspects to it, but there are also things that lead one to another, that is, beyond your scope. You can see and control things only to a degree, and you don't know when you roll the ball, you don't know to which other balls that ball hits and to which other ball. So it's like a chain of influence, chain of, I think it's always worthy to be open about this whole impact thing, because having started this discussion about, people already interested in our work is coming and watching point, I'm now pulling us all to another point in which, we shouldn't be necessarily pessimistic about that either, because you never know. We are already not doing the kind of work that we want impact of thousands and thousands of people. So we're already after small, touching people in a small but strong way. And that happens most of the time. So I think we should also resist that pressure coming from the mainstream civil society or cultural work kind of gods telling us to have more impact, but it's more about how you actually touch people and what remains after your work. And that's not easy to say from, you know, today to tomorrow. It's a long-term process and we have to invest in it one way or another. So, and I think that's a very rewarding process as well. You see many years later, somebody just saw that film, or somebody who has been in your workshop and then they're at some other part of their life and that have a memory for them. So I think that all is very valuable and that all what makes us belonging to the same community in a way. So
I can jump in and just add something as well, but yeah, everything said so far is right on. I think one thing that I think about when, like you mentioned, public space is, I think, you know, no matter what the narrative out there is at the moment, the prevailing narrative, I think that, you know, at least we've found in our work that we can always find an ally. There are allies out there in different, I don't know, schools or communities or municipalities, someone that's willing to listen, someone that finds value in what you do. And I think especially with the kind of work that we do, that, you know, we bring something new to the community. We bring something that will be of interest, at least to part of the community, well, of like serious interest, and then curiosity interest to a lot more. And I think that, you know, like within municipalities, let's say, kind of different stakeholders, that, you know, when they see something, a nice project being developed, I think that they can still find value in that and create space for it. And, you know, especially within the kind of work that we're doing, when we're bringing everything to the table and they don't really have to do anything but say yes, sometimes that can be helpful in moving it along. Yeah, those are my thoughts on public space. We're also getting close to the end of the conversation. I don't know, would anyone like to share some final remarks or one last question? I think we don't have anything from Facebook Live just yet, but if not, then I think we can close the conversation here. I'll give one more quick pause. Okay. Yeah, I think we can close the conversation here, but I want to thank all of you for joining tonight. It's really been our pleasure. I've learned a lot. I've been very happy to hear the other initiatives that are taking place. Of course, I know Home for Cooperation and us, but for yours as well, it's really been nice, and I really hope to see them in person someday very soon. So with that, we wish everyone a lovely rest of the evening, and we will go ahead and end the broadcast. So good night.
good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
It was nice meeting you all.
And okay, we have ended the live stream, so it's just us.
Okay.
And as I have learned from last time, I think if the translators would, don't worry about staying any longer. Maybe just 2 minutes just to say thank you again. That was really, really beautiful conversation. I loved all of the input, the ideas, and yeah, hopefully, I don't know, we can find other opportunities to collaborate, maybe all together as one big project or something. Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, from Istanbul to